Your actions will not change until your mind does. Hi, welcome to the Godly Business Podcast. I'm your host, Anne Jean Pierre, and today I wanted to talk about how changing your mindset is probably the best and fastest way to start in addressing how to improve your sales skills. One of the things that I've noticed among new entrepreneurs or people that have trained when it comes to sales is that the number one thing that is stopping them from achieving their goal is how they view sales. So this conversation is more of a continuing of the last conversation that we had on how fear sometimes will stop you from achieving your goal and how fear dictates how you move within the sales world. So if you change your fears, right? If you pretty much change your mindset around what sales is, this is probably the first way to improve your sales skills. We talked a little bit last week on how if you view sales as something that is inherently bad, if you view the pursuit of quote unquote business success, meaning money, and you view that as something that's inherently bad, how your actions will start aligning with that concept, and therefore you are going to make decisions, say things, move in a certain way that is pretty much against what you're trying to accomplish because your mind doesn't align with what you truly want. So in today's episode, I wanted to go over a couple things that needs first to be addressed. So obviously the first thing is your mind. I hope you guys had a chance to do the exercise that I talked about last week, where you should write down, your fears, just so you can have a better understanding of like what is motivating the way you're moving, right? What is motivating you not asking for the sale? What is motivating you, offering discounts because the person is seems hesitant and things like that. So I hope you had a chance to write those things down and dive a little bit deeper. And I'm curious to know what you found. So I hope you send me a message and let me know, what you found and things like that. So in shifting your mind, the first thing I want you to do is not focus on the sell. I know that may sound counterintuitive, however you say that word. But I do believe that the first thing you need to do is not to worry about the sales, not to worry in the conversation that you're having with your client or prospect customer about the sales. Do not worry about that. The first thing I want you to do is actually focus on what the person is saying. Focus on what the problem is that they're telling you that their problem is, and actually focus on finding a solution for them. That is the first thing when you come into a sales conversation, I want you to think about. Not about how you're going to navigate to get them to the yes and getting them to commit. The first thing I want you to think of is how to provide them with the solution. When you approach sales from that perspective, a couple things happen. First, you will pay close attention to them. You will have no choice but to actively listen, because in you trying to find a solution, you really are going to want to focus on what the actual problem is. So therefore, it forces you to actually listen to what the customer is saying. And then in listening, this is where you find what I call those golden nuggets of information that the customer will provide to you, right? And then you just pick those little golden nuggets and put them in the back of your pocket, right? The second thing is, and actively listening to the customer and trying to find solution, it actually opens your mind up to think of different ways you can actually help the customer that perhaps before you never thought of, right? You may have been focusing on, okay, this is one of the benefits of my service, and this is one of our product. But now that the customer is, you're listening to the customer, you're having the conversation with the customer, you start to realize, oh, wait a minute, based on what they're saying in their issue, my product or service can actually resolve that for them. And this is a thing that you may not have considered to pitch it or present your solution, present the solution to the customer from that vantage point. So this is why I say, and the first thing when you're having a conversation is to focus on just being in that conversation first off, and listening actively, and then, drawing those information that they're telling you by trying to be like, I look at it like a detective, right? Solving a mystery, and listening to them and understanding truly what they're looking for. Then you're able to, pivot and present your solution to them in a way that is really going to be very unique to what they're saying. So that's the number one thing I want you to focus on. The other thing I would challenge you on is, we kind of talked about it already, is your perception. I want you to look at your perception and from a couple different vantage points. One is, why are you so focused on getting the sales? Is it because your numbers are, like, the goal you've set for yourself is too drastic? Could it be that the goal that you have set for yourself, and sometimes, if you work for corporate America in sales, you have quotas, right, that you have to meet. And of course, in those scenarios, like, you have no real control over the quotas that, the company sets for you. But what I'm talking about is, even with that, and as entrepreneurs, what are the quotas that we are setting for ourselves? Are we even setting quotas for ourselves? Because I see that a lot as well, where people go into the new month with no set goal of what it is that they're trying to achieve for that month when it comes to their, how many services they're trying to sell, how many accounts they're trying to close. No set goals. So that's a completely different conversation that we will need to delve into in a different time. But is it that maybe your goals are not clear, right? And your perception is that you somehow have to win every single sale, that's in front of you. And because of that, you place such a high burden and such a high pressure on yourself that now you're stumbling, because the goal is trying to reach this very high, perhaps unrealistic goal that you have set for yourself. So that's one thing that I would like to reflect on, and maybe change your perception. And like, do I need this goal? Is this goal realistic? Is this something that I can really achieve? And the other thing is not to focus, like I already addressed in the first section, not to focus on that sales goal. Still within perception, are you focused on, what are you focused on when you are setting your goals? What are you focused on when you are trying to reach your goals. So let's say now you've already set your goals. You've already decided this is what you're going to, I want to close 10 accounts this month. What exactly are you setting that goal on? How did you come up with that goal of, I need to close 10 accounts. I need to close 20 accounts. What is motivating that goal? And the reason why I'm saying that is, if you look at your motivation behind the goal, you may find that you are, one, overworking yourself. Two, it's unrealistic for your market, right? Three, is it to where now, because of this goal that you set, that perhaps may not be the right goal, may not be realistic for the quarter that you're in based on your business, right? Because some businesses do really well during the spring and summer, but not so well during fall and winter. Is this goal that you've set for yourself so unrealistic that now you find yourself cutting corners in order to achieve that goal? And so therefore, when you are in that conversation with the customer and that you are trying to achieve those goals, you start focusing on the wrong thing and start making decisions and moving about a certain way that you shouldn't be. I hope this makes sense. I hope what I'm trying to explain is coming across correctly to you. That when you are setting up your I'm so sorry, I'm getting distracted with my son who just came in. That's life, But when you are setting your goals, right, you have to keep in mind a lot of different things. And I can create a talk on a podcast, separately about those how to properly set goals. But if you're approaching sales with, hey, I have to reach these accounts, I have to make X amount of close this month, and not really understanding the motivation behind it, not really having a structure, a strategy to come up with those numbers, again, you find yourself stumbling and trying to achieve a certain numbers and then trying to force results and therefore cutting corners. So this is another thing that I wanted to make sure that you truly take into account when you are setting up your goals and numbers and trying to achieve, your sales and trying to improve your sales skills. These are the things that I think I'm challenging you to think about and reflect on. The other thing is, I want you to write down the challenge I'm giving you for the next couple weeks. Is, if you can, not everybody can do this, but if you can, I would like for you to record your sales conversations when you're talking to the customer. Now, depending on the business that you're in, you may have to let your customer know that you are recording them, right? And you can explain to them that is for that they're being recorded, for quality and insurance purposes, and that this recording is going to be protected, blah blah. Just be full disclosure that they are being recorded, and that is for training purposes and things like that. I challenge you to record your sales conversation, and when you do that, listen to it again. Obviously, that's the point of you recording it. I want you to hear what you're saying, hear where the pauses are between you and the prospect. And I want you to listen to what they're saying. And then the challenge I give you is find, in the response that you gave, find 3 different approach different ways you could have answered that question, or you could have approached that challenge that you were presented with in the sales conversation. This is something that I walk through with pretty much all of my sales training and coaching programs that I have. Is I have my clients record their conversation, record the conversation so that we can break it down and talk about it. But for the podcast purpose, I want to challenge you to do something similar. Is for you yourself to record the conversation and then go back and listen to it. It can be cringy at first, I get it, but I really think this will help you to see how exactly you are in a sales conversation, because you will be very surprised to in your mind thinking this conversation is going this way, but someone from the outside looking in is like, yeah, this conversation is going south really fast. But you being in the middle of it, you don't see that, right? So this is why it's important, and I encourage recording the conversation, listening to yourself objectively once you're outside of the conversation. And you will find I promise you, 100% after you listen to this, even if you're the best salesperson out there, after you record the conversation and listen to yourself, you're going to go back and be like, oh man, I could have said this. I should have said this. I should have responded this way or that way, or not say that. And this will allow you to improve your sales skills, because now you are working with an awareness of what the issue is. You are walking in with an awareness of, okay, these are my problem areas. These are the areas that I'm stumbling in. And this is where I will need help. And this is, maybe it's in the introduction of the product or service. Maybe it's on how I'm answering the question. Maybe you remember, if you listen to last week's episode, right? Maybe it's the tone of voice. Maybe it's XYZ. Now, by listening to yourself and being in that conversation, or being outside of that conversation rather, and listening to it retrospectively, you will have a better understanding of where your skill level are, where your issues are, and where you will need to improve. So these are the three, I think it was three things that I wanted to bring about today, and for you to think about on how to improve your sales skills. Those areas in which you can go back to and address. And I promise you, this is going to be a great foundation, and you learning those things and applying them, that will help you grow become better at sales, improve your sales skills. So I hope you found this podcast helpful. I'm sorry I was a little all over the place. Like I said, my 4-year-old just came in here, barged in, kind of interrupted my train of thought for a second. But I hope you found this very helpful. I hope you go ahead and apply them. I really strongly suggest doing the recording of your sales conversation. I think that will be a game changer for you. And like I said, this is something that I find is very helpful as a coach, to really help people realize where you are in your sales. And sometimes, without me even saying it, they discover oh snap, this is where I'm struggling. So I think this will be very helpful, and you learning, where your weaknesses are in order for you to improve your sales skills. So this conversation was really brought about with the concept of, renewing your mind that Paul talks about in Romans. And I really do believe that in changing your mind and renewing your mind and having a different perspective, your actions do change. And so if you change your mind and renew your perception on sales, you are already halfway there and improving your sales skills. So thank you so much for taking the time to, listen to this podcast today. Please follow the podcast. Right now it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It will be launched on other podcast platforms. If you find this helpful, just keep following and listening. If you have questions that you would like me to dive a little bit deeper on, please feel free to send them to me. I look forward to speaking with you on our next show. And remember to keep God first, ask Him for instruction, ask Him to guide you, ask Him to give you counsel and wisdom in everything that you do, and you will be successful. So God bless. I will talk to you guys next time.